The next session is around new products and new product innovation and new games for the regulated Spanish market. I'm going to hand you over to Eduardo Morales Hermo, who's a senior consultant at Ficom Ledger. He's been in the industry for about 20 years, and if there's anything he doesn't know about it, I'll be very surprised. So I'm going to hand over to Eduardo to take it from here.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for coming here, and thank you to the organization to invite me. We are going to discuss about innovation, new games, things that we can add to the offer in order to absorb more customers, different customer profile, and at the same time help the onshore to bring more of the offshore if we can. In order to discuss this, we have Hampus Hagglof, CEO for FSport AV, Alex Zubizarreta, Susperregi, he's a country manager for Interwetten, Magdalena who is representing as Chief Commercial Officer for Authentic Gaming. And then we have another guest, which was added at the last minute, which is Eric Nicolas from Chiron Interactive. I will bring in some of the topics, but I want to give the panel freedom to discuss it and to come on with new topics as they wish. So the first topic that I would like to introduce is about live gaming content. How do you think that we can improve the offer to the existing offer at this moment? I will move in here.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So I can start. I'm representing today live casino industry. So from our perspective, I guess there's 3 points that I'd like to touch on. One of them would be around obviously, expanding an offer and how an expanded offer allows you to have grow the market healthily. And the other point would be around just general kind of player acquisition through an interesting offer. So from our perspective, we have 17 games, and almost half of them are streamed from land-based casinos all over the world. So it would be fantastic to be able to allow players in the Spanish market to access tables in the US, for example, or in Germany, or in Denmark. And so in other regulated markets, this is something that's allowed. And I guess from my understanding that the current regulation today, which allows streaming just from land-based Spanish casinos, has been created 5 years ago. And so potentially looking at cannibalization of land-based, online to land-based. And so maybe that's something that could be looked at once again, since it has been proven since the online is around for 5 years, there hasn't actually been any cannibalization. So it would be nice to kind of expand that and give that opportunity for those types of products in the market. The other point to quickly touch on is roulette. So we're kind of a roulette specialist. Today we have very distinct different sub-verticals of the roulette category, and they are all, so we have different types of players. It's quite evenly split, so kind of 25% going to the streamed tables, 25% going to auto roulette, more or less 25% going to our casino floor studio, which is a studio in the casino, and then 25% going to our studio table with a large video wall. So this proves that even the roulette player, they don't play different types of actual roulette games. They kind of stick to one preferable one. So even within the roulette category, it would be good to have different types of roulette products that are kind of regulated and allowed within the market, because they appeal to different types of roulette players. And just kind of one final point really quickly, I guess from an operator's perspective, speaking to all of our operators in different regulated markets, they tell us, and of course, Alex, you can also maybe back that up, that around 40% of the players play blackjack. So the split between roulette and blackjack, this is probably a known fact for everybody, is around 60-40 or 50-50. So why not appeal and open up the market to that additional 50% of live casino players? So some observations from my side.
Perhaps Eric can illustrate us about your vision about the virtuals in online. We are, our experience, even though I've been 50 years in this industry, only 20 years in the online because the online did not exist before. So when I started, virtuals did not exist. Later on, virtuals have been very successful in some markets in the retail, but not as much in the online, as we are all aware. But it's another product which is allowed in Spain. You can homologate and you can certify virtuals through the slots, the vertical. And it's a product that could be possibly interesting for the online as well, especially in Spain when you have operators that operate online and land-based and then an omni-channel, even though not very much developed yet, but they have that opportunity.
Yeah, as you said, virtual games is mostly a retail product. Okay, but since 10 years ago, we are making some experience in online in different markets, and we have different approaches to different operators, even lotteries operators and sportsbook operators. And we noticed that the product is very complementary to the product. It puts between the casino, because it's actually an RNG product, and sports betting, because the way to present to the player is more on a sportsbook. So we noticed that the product increased the turnover of the operator in an average of 15-20% in some markets, and not cannibalize the other products. So it just increased the total turnover of the operations. Handicap that we have in some markets, like in Spain, is the regulation, because here it's considered an RNG product, which is a slot game, and in fact it's quite hard to put the best improvement of the product in place, because maybe it matches more in sportsbook, because it complements when the live events in sportsbook is going down, then increase the product of the virtuals. So the players prefer to play virtuals when there is less live events, or the events are not fancy for them. So, but you said there is an option to be in place as a slot game. In fact, as an Chiron Interactive that I'm representing for here, we are working for that. We have been working since a year ago now, and we are very close to be a reality soon. But well, we'll see how it works in Spain, because will be in the slot session. There is the slot session player. We have to configure the time he wants to play, the spend he wants to, how much spend he wants to spend, and well, we see how the performance. But in our projections, we are thinking that will increase the turnover between 8 and 10%.
Okay, now I'd like to move to Hampus so that he can give us an introduction about FSport and eSports, etc.
Okay, thank you. So I represent fantasy sport, and specifically daily fantasy sports. And we recently had an introduction of such a game in Spain by Mondo Bets. I'm really interested in hearing how they're doing. I wasn't sure that this was legal, but Eduardo has enlightened me and said that it is actually fine to offer.
Well, it has to be interpreted.
Okay, depending on your interpretation, but we have a licensed operator offering daily fantasy sports, and that's fantastic, I think. This game obviously is quite different. It's a pool game, and as a pool game, you all know it's totally dependent on liquidity, and thus creating bigger prices, and thus we enter into the question about shared liquidity, and this is a regulatory question where I think that maybe, again, the DGOJ, who does a wonderful job, could look into more lenient rules about sharing liquidity, both nationally and internationally, because it makes the game a very viable alternative.
Okay. Well, Fantasy Sports is already working on retail with the betting product as well, but it has to be see how it fits into the online, or how it can be interpreted to put it into a complementary game section, etc. I'd like to introduce now Alex Zubizarreta, because as an operator, I think he can give us a vision overall, what we have discussed, plus.
Yeah, I am working in Interwetten. I am managing the Spanish website, and I can have some feedback for my other colleagues for other countries. So we are including more live games in .com website, and also virtuals. The experience that they are sharing with me is that the virtuals are not working very well in online, yes, in retail, but not in online. And regarding the live games, like live blackjack and Caribbean poker that we don't have in Spanish at this moment, they tell me that they are working very well. So I would like also to have them in my Spanish website, as I think that they are a very interesting product for our customers. And regarding the fantasy sports, I think that the Spanish market is very used to play this kind of games, as we have been talking before with the Liga Fantástica Marca, Liga de los Ases. In fact, we have started this August a fantasy league with Biwenger, and we have registered more than 13,000 users in a free-to-play game. So I think that there is a market there. But the thing is that in case that we as Interwetten Spain will be able to include the fantasy sport in our portfolio, we will not have the enough fan base to offer them an attractive price pool. So I think that it will be interesting to work in a shared liquidity among the operators that would like to share a unique fantasy product with good price pool for the customers. So that is my opinion about this kind of product. But yes, I think that we need to continue working in including more products and improving our user experience in order to avoid the black market that is already very low in Spain thanks to the good regulation we have. But we cannot get sleep, and we need to continue working in that way. So that's my opinion.
What is your idea about establishing the network for games like bingo or similar, that we can increase the attractiveness of this product? In other words, as it happens with other games, when you add a liquidity or share liquidity of slots, not just within the same content provider, but gathering all the content providers within one operator.
Well, I don't know, it's something that I have not been thinking about it, but yeah, it could be interesting. Why not? I don't have any concrete opinion about that.
Well, there's a few developments going on in trying to build up liquidity, not just within one provider content, but an operator adding up all the providers and establishing its own jackpot. It's something that has to be, of course, interpreted also by the DAJOG.
I was just going to make one comment on that. Generally, when you have a kind of larger pot, it's much easier to acquire new players because they get excited about a large jackpot. So depending on the market, it's a great way to acquire new players. That's why the average person plays lottery, for example, because they're lured in by, or excited by the potential of becoming a millionaire overnight. So the jackpots and a shared liquidity or like a bingo network or what have you gives the ability to have a much larger pot and more excitement essentially to kind of try a game for the first time because of the dream. So.
Yeah, for sure. We are in Cairo, we are developing a new jackpot system for South African markets. We make our first test in connecting the jackpot in the virtuals in the retail, and the improvement of the turnover is quite clear, and the caption of the new players, and even the rotation of the players. So when the jackpot is a huge amount, and you increase the playing a lot. It's quite successful, this kind of in-network games or products.
Yeah. Well, the problem in Spain is you cannot mix retail with online. It has different regulation, it's a different jurisdiction, and has to be just an online liquidity in any case.
Alex, you're working for an international operator. If you were to introduce DFS, what would your preference be? Would it be sharing the prize pool within your international network, your own Interwetten network, or would it be to share it with other Spanish operators?
Yeah, I was thinking in the second option, yeah, with other Spanish operators that could have a similar size to Interwetten in Spain, and we could add a different product to compete with the big brands in a differentiation of the product, yeah.
So then you would take the Spanish...
I was thinking in a Spanish liquidity, yeah.
Yeah, but you wouldn't offer that same opportunity to your Austrian players, perhaps?
Yeah, I was not thinking of that, but as I am only thinking in Spain, not in all the markets that Interwetten is already operating, because each one has his own regulation, and I think that it's more easy for all of us to create a regulation for all the Spanish markets and create a share liquidity for that country.
Okay. I remember in 1998, I developed the first real game, a slot machine for Skybet in England. I had a developing company. We were one of the first slots that were developed for the industry there. This machine is still, this type of games are still working today after 20 years. And what we did, we made a multiplayer type of game. In other words, we built that like it happens in arcade. We brought into the online a multiplayer game. In other words, where different players can play within one game at the same time, which is something that was done and then it was never continued. And that means that you have multiplayer games at this moment. You can build into a liquidity from other providers on different games. In other words, instead of making just one multiplier on one game, make it on different games for different suppliers. In principle, which is applicable now to slots, this could be transferred to your games as well, to the live dealer games?
A type of multiplayer game? You mean between different live casino providers, or like where you put money each time you bet and some of the contribution goes to a jackpot, potentially? Yeah, I suppose that that could potentially be done as a product, collaborative product. I'm not sure if, that's a direction that we would want to take on a product level. But of course, that's a possibility.
At the end of the day, it's marketing investment. Is the operator who invests in in marketing by assigning a percentage of your win into a special jackpot for
exactly.
that type of games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could be something.
Well, this topic is not able to really progress much further on this other subject, but maybe the public here will have some suggestions or ideas about areas of product and content that are not regulated that you think will be interesting to be regulated?
No.
I can ask Alex again, since he's the only operator on the panel. You're in the line of fire. Your main object in Spain is, of course, to increase, to grow, sustainably grow. What tools would you like to have? I mean, how important are new games versus advertising, as we've spoken of before? And
I think that it's a sum of all the things. It's not only to have a good marketing plan, good sponsorship. If in the end you get the customers to your website, but they don't find a nice product for them. So I think that it's a sum of all the things. We need to work in having a good portfolio of games and new products in our website, but also because if they are coming to our website and they don't see anything interesting or any special that they cannot find in other places, they are going to go again. So we need to work their attention with this type of products. And I think that the fantasy is a very good product for the retention, because they can go day by day, entering their account and selecting the new players, or removing players that have been issued or injured, this kind of thing. So it's a very good product for retention. Of course, I think that we are not going to have a big GGR thanks to the fantasy games, but maybe our new customers and new depositing customers are increasing because of that. So it's to find an edge, and this will be an interesting one in Spain, I think.
Okay, I think we had 20 minutes, if we did like 23. So we are, thank you very much for your time. I hope it was not too boring after the advertising and all these other hot topics that we had before. But I thank you for your attention. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.